And here's the project we're going to do today. This is a Making a Scene project, and I'm calling this one The Dog Days of Summer. This one is done using watercolors and the Zig Clean Color water brush pens, or real brush pens, and stamped and colored on Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. These were the stamps that were used. This here, it was the Making a Scene Rocky Shore, number T2035F. This one was a Stampscape stamp. It's the Shore Near 412E. The little dog was Making a Scene Lone Puppy T4110A. The tree house was Making a Scene T7157H. The leafy tree was Making a Scene T8-186D. The two grasses here, the grass tall and the grass short, was Making a Scene M1026B. And I also used a couple of art impression stamps. The little grass was from their set number 4051, and the little bundle of flowers is from their set 5009. And these were the colors and inks used. I stamped all the stamps using Gina K Designs black amalgam ink. You can use any ink that is watercolor rated or good for watercoloring. I used silver black velvet brushes to do the actual watercoloring. The Zig Clean Color real brush pens, number 92, 94, and 902 were all grays. 63, 65, 62, 64, and 66 were the browns that were used. 41 and 44 were the greens. 36 and 31 were the blues, and number 27 was the pinks. I also used a Signo 0.1 white gel pen, and I also used some Zayar white oil-based paint marker. I did this all on some Canson XL Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock, cut to 4.5 by 6 inches, and I sealed the final product to protect it using some Krylon UV resistant clear acrylic coating spray. And let's begin. Okay, I'm going to stamp this on some Bristol Smooth cardstock. The one I'm using is a 1/4 sheet of the 9-inch by 12-inch, so that means that would be 4.5 by 6-inch. And I'm going to put it into my Stampin' Up platform. I'm using a Misty Creative corner so that I can offset the sheet a bit. I'm going to be using some Gina K Designs black amalgam ink. This is supposed to work with watercolors. I'm going to color with some Zig Clean Color real brush pens. And so let's begin. Okay, I will start by inking up the tree house. Okay, I'm going to put my Misty Creative corner back in and make sure my piece is positioned correctly. I'll turn around to the other side, and now I will stamp the background trees and the little dog. Now I put a piece of tape here to show me where I want to stop inking up this particular stamp. So I'm going to use my smaller size amalgam ink so that I can have better control. Okay, and now I'm going to change the top to the foreground stamp. Put my Misty Creative corner back in, reposition this. And once again, I've placed a piece of tape where I want to ink from, and so I will just ink up to that point. Okay, and I'm going to give the ink a few minutes to dry really well so that we can start brushing on the color. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, we'll start with the background trees, and I'm going to use number 44. This one is deep green. And I will just color in the trees. Okay, the water brush I think was delivering too much water, so I'm going to change to Black Velvet Silver #2 brush, just a regular watercolor brush. And I will just dip that in water, and I think I'll have a little bit better control over this than I did with the water brush. Okay, for the tree over the leaves of the tree over the tree house, I'm going to use number 41, light green. And then I'll use a number 4, Silver Black Velvet watercolor brush. Okay, I'm going to use some of the number 44, the deep green. This is the same green I used for the trees in the background. And I'm just going to put a little bit at the shadow areas of the leaves here. Okay, for the rocks in the background here, I'm going to use some number 66 dark oatmeal. And I'll use some number 64 oatmeal. And now I'll use my number 4 brush. Okay, now I'm going to use the same colors to work on the treehouse. So I'll put the darker color in the shadow areas and the lighter. And I'll use my number 4 brush. Okay, I put some of the dark color on my palette over here, and I'm going to just pick it up directly with my brush. Okay, now I'll do the same thing with the doghouse, starting with my darker color and the lighter oatmeal color. And I'll use my number 4 brush. Okay, and this up back here has dried, and so I want to add some of the green. So I'll start with my number 44 deep green. Then I'll add some of the light green. And I'll take my number 4 brush, and I'm going to make sure it's pretty dry, so I'm going to wipe off most of the water and just blend in this green with the background. And I'm going to take my number 66 dark oatmeal. These areas have dried now, and I'm going to want to kind of emphasize where it's darkest with these wood planks, just to add a little more definition. Okay, for the tree, I'm going to use number 63, ochre. Okay, and I'm going to add some number 65 mid-brown also to it. Okay, and I'll take my squeeze dried watercolor brush and just kind of blend these two colors together. Okay, I'm going to take some of the dark oatmeal now and kind of highlight the structures underneath the limbs here with the darker. Okay, and I'm going to take my dark oatmeal and go over the rocks here. And then I'll use my number 2 brush Okay, for this tree, I think I kind of want to blend it off the corners. So I'm going to add a little more of the light over here. Use my bigger brush. Okay, for the interiors of these structures, I'm going to add some blue-gray, number 92, just to differentiate the inside. Add a little bit of blue to the shadows on the inside. Okay, for the roofs of these two structures, I'm going to use some gray-brown, number 94. And I'll take my number 4 brush. Okay, and up in this region up here in the leaves, I'm going to add a little bit of the number 44, deep green. And then blend it out. Okay, and back on the roofs, I'm going to add some more of the 94. And then I'll use a squeezed off paintbrush to kind of blend that in. Okay, for these latter steps, I'm going to use some number 62 dark brown. And I'll use my number 2 brush. Okay, I'm going to use some of my number 41 light green to color in the grasses over here. Okay, and I'll use my brush. I'm going to squeeze off most of the water. Okay, I've added some of the color over to my palette, and I'm going to brush it directly on from the palette, which is off screen. All right, now I'll take some of my darker green, the number 44, and I will just start to brush in these grasses here. Okay, now brush it out with my brush. Okay, and I'll blend all this in with a damp brush. Okay, I want to add some green down here into the grass, so I'm going to use some number 63 ochre. And now I'll blend it in with my brush. Okay, for the little dog, I'm going to add some number 902 natural gray. And I'm just going to put some on my palette off screen here. And then I will take my brush and I will just pick up a little bit of it, and I will kind of color in the shadow areas of the little dog. Okay, and now I'll take a damp brush and just bring a little bit of the color into the white areas of the dog. Okay, I'm going to take the small grass stamp, and I'm going to color some of the number 41 light green directly onto the stamp. I'm using the side of the brush to color the stamp, to put the color on the stamp, and then I will just stamp some of the grass here. Okay, and when I stamp this, I am stamping multiple times each time I ink it up, so that I get some color differentiation between the multiple stampings. I'm going to use my Art Impressions little bundle flower stamp, and I'm going to use some number 27 dark pink, and I am only going to color the flower portion of the stamp. I'm not going to do the stems. Okay, now I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to squeeze off most of the water, and then I'm just going to dab at these flowers. Okay, then I'm going to take my Art Impressions Little Grass stamp, and I'm going to use my darker green, the number 44. Okay, and I also forgot to color in the grass here, so I'm going to use my darker green, the number 44, and I will just brush in this grass here. And I'll take my paintbrush and just bring that color out. Okay, I'm going to want to ground these structures a little more, and definitely want to ground the little dog. So I'm going to use my number 92 blue-gray, and I will add some water and kind of blend that out. Okay, I want to start coloring in the water, so I'm going to use a palette again, and I am going to use number 31 cobalt blue, and I'm going to put this on my palette, and I am going to use a number 8 brush. This is a pretty big brush, and I'm going to get it pretty wet. And then I'm going to pick up some of this water, and I will just start brushing it in. Okay, I'm going to give that a little bit of a chance to dry, and I'm going to do the same thing to the sky. Okay, I'm going to add a lighter blue. This one is number 36, light blue. And I am just going to draw in some details in the water. Okay, and I'll take my number 4. I'm going to squeeze off most of the water. This is my number 4 brush. And just kind of soften these lines that I've just added. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the sky, but I'm going to concentrate most of the color along the top and the edges. Okay, and I am going to re-stamp some of these stamps now. I want to add some highlights now, so I'm going to use a white gel pen. This is a Signo Uniball. This is the, I believe it's 0.1. Yes, it's the 0.1. Okay, I'm going to put a tree in this corner, so I will put that in, make sure it's straight. And just to see the way it looks, I'm going to put my acrylic plate from my large stamp positioner. And then I will stamp this tree on it. Let's see, I need to remove my creative corner. And I'd say that looks pretty good. Okay, and this time I'm going to ink it up with my number 44, the dark green, and I will zoom out so you can see what I'm doing, and I will just ink up the leaves of the tree here. Okay, I will remove my Mr. Creative corner and I will stamp the leaves. Okay, and take my brush. What I'm doing with my brush here, I'm just dabbing at it. I'm not brushing it, I'm dabbing it to kind of soften these leaves. Okay, now I'll use the number 65 mid brown to color in the trunk. Okay, now I'm going to take my paintbrush and brush it down to kind of smooth down this trunk, and especially to blend in what I stamped over so that it looks like the tree is in front of what was already stamped. Okay, and I'm going to take the number 65 brown and actually paint on the trunk to make this really dark. Okay, I'm going to try some of my Zig paint markers. I'm going to use a white. I'm going to shake it up really good, make sure it's primed, and I want to see if I can add some more definition over here at the shore across. The gel pen didn't quite make it dark enough, so I will try this pen and see how this one works. Okay, and I missed some of the blue over here, so I'm going to add a little bit of the number 31 cobalt blue. Okay, and I think I'm gonna add some dark streaks too, especially near the edges. Okay, and I'll use some more of my Zig paint marker to continue to add some highlights on the opposite shore here. Okay, and then I'm going to use a larger grass and my darker green, this is the number 44, to stamp some grass into the far foreground. And I'll use a 0.3 multi-liner to add some birds. And I'll also use the multi-liner to sign and date it. Okay, I'm going to give this a chance to dry, and then I'm going to spray it with a clear acrylic coating to protect it, and when I'm finished, we'll be back. Alright, and here is the final result after it's been sprayed with the clear acrylic coating, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye!